welcome back to another episode of My Father Before Me, a segment where we bring together nerds from different generations to discuss the films that define the culture and made us who we are today. I'm your host, Brennan Sem. Joining me, as usual, is Tory Sem, my father. How are you doing today, Dad?
I'm going to be playing both roles today, just so you know. Your imaginary friend and your dad.
I wish we could bring you a jacket so that you could switch out every once in a while.
I should have done that. I should have been more prepared.
We don't have a costume department yet, so we're slacking.
Well.
But what are we going to be talking about today?
Today we are going to be talking about that 80s classic starring Henry Thomas. No, I'm not talking E.T. This is Cloak and Dagger.
The better Henry Thomas movie.
That's right. Cloak and Dagger from 1984. It's not at all based off the Cloak and Dagger Marvel comics.
Yes, very different.
I don't know when they came out, but I can guarantee you this is not that. But kind of a, I guess the writers, the directors, they wanted to make a young child's thriller, and I think they did. So.
I think they did too. I think it actually succeeded fairly well. I mean, definitely we're hitting on some themes that are standard in the My Father Before Me. We've got the kid who knows everything and the parents who don't believe him.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, but I think it was definitely fun. It was definitely a little weird at parts, especially towards the end. That got a little confusing, but I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit.
Well, we talked about, we just did Never-Ending Story, right, where we have a horse dying in a children's movie, right, and stabbing a giant dog jumping out at you and that sort of thing. In this one, we actually have a spy thriller. We've got actual shots fired at children.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a little girl carrying around a C4 bomb. They got a timer on it.
Very difficult to disarm, I hear.
That's what I heard. And, there is, we got a William Forsythe getting shot.
Yeah, R.I.P. And he looks very different from the last time we talked about him.
Yes, he does.
He definitely fits that, middle-aged game store owner vibe that you imagined.
He did. He definitely hit that. I don't know if the beard was there or if he grew it out for the part, but if he did, that's commitment.
Yeah, definitely. So,
so the story, so Cloak and Dagger is a kid who is another kid who's stuck in a fantasy realm because his mom died, right?
Yeah.
Basically. And, of course, the parents are ignoring him, or the dad, I should say, is ignoring him. Adults ignore him because he's just dealing with the loss and that sort of thing, which if you came up to me and was telling me about the secret spies and showing me a Atari video game, I might wonder too.
Yeah.
I have to say.
He definitely doesn't do himself any favors here.
No, he doesn't. They kind of play into that a little bit. Right off the bat, they show him carrying around a backpack which has got softball in it. He calls a grenade and stuff. So, right off the bat, the kid's, obviously invested in his little fantasy spy world that he's created. So.
Oh, yeah. And it seems like it's a pretty standard operating procedure for him when they're walking around talking on, walkie-talkies. So
yes.
This is definitely something these people have dealt with before.
And I'm guessing that wasn't the first mission that the creepy game store owner sent him to go get him Twinkies or whatever in a secret mission type of thing.
So what I don't get is why did it, again, presumably this is the type of thing that they've done before. He sends him on these, little missions or whatever. Why does Henry Thomas, what's his name, Davy, why does he act surprised when it's just to go get a Twinkie? This is like standard. I don't understand.
He wants the real stuff. I don't know. It sounds like, so to me, I think they go over there and this guy is, it looked like at the beginning it was kind of a tabletop gaming experience, I'm assuming that the dude sets up scenarios for the kids to play kind of thing, you know? And, he wanted him to go over and get him the catalog. Looked like he was a game programmer trying to write a game or something like that. He wanted him to go over and get the catalog or whatever from the rival technology company. But, I don't know. It's probably one of those get the kids out of my hair kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was definitely, that was a bit of a weird scene with him right in the beginning where, they're playing the game and Davey wins, obviously, because Jack Flack always escapes.
Right.
And he's like, what's the next one? And Morris goes, give me time, I got to prepare it. This time I'm going to get you. He delivers it a little insidiously.
He definitely, And, I think Davey cheats. I don't know. He didn't know the value on those numbers when he saved Jack Flack. I was watching. But
it's weighted dice for sure.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
It's a fun thing. And you can tell that when you're doing this thing and you're playing with the kids, I suppose it is a matter of just needing that I don't know, something to distract them, and having a mission, right, is the way to do it, I suppose. So.
Yeah, I mean, definitely framing it like that will sort of leads into this thing that he's obviously very invested in with
Did you watch it too?
Game.
Yeah.
He did watch it. In fact, he tried to stop me from watching it. He wasn't a big fan.
I can't imagine that he tries to distract you from things.
Kept putting his paws on my laptop. Oh, man, he makes me so mad.
And that's interesting. That's something we should point out is we may have watched this through less than nefarious means. I've talked about this, even back when we did War Games, I brought up this movie. So we've been trying to watch it, but it's not streaming anywhere. I know it's out for rental and that sort of thing. So I'd encourage anybody, if they're really interested, to check and see if it's a cheap rental or something. But yeah, it's kind of a fun, I don't know, fun. Maybe fun isn't the word. It's an 80s children's exciting movie. And I still, I remember it. I still have a little cringe as a child seeing the old lady with missing two fingers, and that sort of thing. So.
Now, does that lady actually only have 3 fingers, or was that like a prosthetic?
That I don't know. I do know in the trivia it mentioned that old couple, and I saw that they have been in lots of shows. In fact, that's where we kind of get into the director and the writer, because they were. I think that she might have been in the original Psycho or something like that. They might have been part of a Psycho movie. And this guy, just after this, did Psycho 2, is why I bring it up. But the old couple is actually a married couple, been married for 50 years. They're a married actor couple and stuff. So I don't know if she committed to the part that hard that she was missing a couple fingers. my assumption, and this is just me with my prejudices of old Hollywood, I don't imagine a female actress in those days with any kind of malformity is getting a lot of parts.
Yeah, definitely. That's fair. I know, she was the voice of Norma Bates in the first Psycho.
Okay,
there we go.
That's what it was.
And, no, yeah, there we go. And yeah, there are a lot of connections that we have to Psycho 2. Like you mentioned, the director and the writer. And then this is a very deep cut. The guy who did the cinematography for Psycho 2, we talked about when we did Escape from New York.
Well, there you go.
Big Trouble.
It's all incestuous. They're all there trying to work together, I guess, get the jobs in the 80s. But.
Yeah. So I guess one question that I do have, speaking of the old couple, is why were they just like, sightseeing? Like they were just chilling around San Antonio, and they just happened to run into this kid.
They're arms dealers, and they're just killing some time until they have to do the meetup in the Alamo, I guess.
Yeah,
so,
I suppose that plays it. It's all character development. They're trying to play this, play up that they're an old couple. And you got to figure,
if they're coming in from out of town, then they don't want it to look like they just popped in and left. So they even mentioned they have to check out, so they had a room, So obviously it's a whole front for these top secret arms dealers who've obviously been in the business for years.
Oh, sure. And I will say it is a fairly decent twist in this to reveal that it is actually them when she takes off the glove and he's in the car.
Yep. I knew it was coming because I remembered it, and I was kind of kidding. And I'm with you there. I'm like, boy, they conveniently were on that boat and had no clue in theory. So I gotta think that it's just a sightseeing thing, but I don't know.
That's a good point. I mean, they mentioned Rice by name, so presumably they know him, but there's no reason to believe that they would know his associates, right, who are chasing Davy on the boat.
Well, and he specifically said that he had to get the thing at the Alamo by 5 or something like that for the drop off. So I'm assuming there's not any kind of communication necessarily either. He didn't even know who they were, right?
Yeah.
So I assume there's not any. Like, they're not telling him that, this kid took it and we got to get him or anything like that. So,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that, if it was a happy accident kind of thing. I guess it had to be. But
yeah.
Now, one thing I did want to note, too, we mentioned the Alamo. I thought it was interesting in the trivia, and is that some of the outside scenes, this is one of the few movies that has some of the outside scenes of the Alamo. All the inside stuff was done on a soundstage because I guess Native Americans figure it's a sacred site, so you can't film on it. So I guess what I'm getting at there is I didn't realize, because I've seen the Alamo in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
I guess what I didn't realize that it was one of those things where you couldn't film there.
That's weird. You could film outside, but just not inside?
Well, and even in the trivia, too, it mentioned that it was one of the few films that even had outside shots.
Oh, I see.
So I don't know whether, whether the rules have changed or didn't or something like that. But it was kind of interesting. I just thought that was an interesting fact. I'd never heard that.
Yeah, that is fun. I imagine that that's probably still in place today. I
would assume. I don't think it didn't lose its sacredness just yet. But who knows? I mean, Ozzy Osbourne famously got in trouble for peeing on it, so maybe it did lose some sacredness.
I missed that.
Yeah, there's a story that he took a leak on the side of the Alamo, I think, if I remember right. Maybe it's somebody. I'm awful sure it was Ozzy Osbourne.
Well, I guess
somebody definitely did, and it was of that ilk, and yeah.
I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. He does bite the head off of bats.
That's right.
Oh man, I will say that I did like the. This is something that I liked in this movie, but it would completely be impossible to replicate today. But hiding the military secrets inside the actual cartridge of the video game.
It is interesting, and I remember those old cartridges. You'd have to blow them before you put them in there in order to make sure they worked okay. Yeah. I mean, you might remember some of those, but
oh yeah, Game Boys and stuff.
Yeah, so it was kind of fun, and yeah, when it's in there, and like I said, it's a perfect setup for a kid to have the secret plans and nobody believe him.
Yeah.
In the same way that, like I said, they're not going to believe that his softball, which he was rudely thrown against a wall, them things cause damage, is a grenade, and that sort of thing. But I thought that was a fun setup, and it is interesting. I can't imagine. I don't understand the logic, though, of hiding it to the point where you get the results if you get the high score, because you got to assume that them old people are going to have to take that and play that game. And I don't know if old people are very good at those games.
I'm sure they've got a grandkid criminal somewhere.
They must.
So come back to the grandkid thing, because I gotta throw some shade at Davey here. He's kind of stupid. But here's my question. Actually, no. I guess. Sorry, I was thinking about the score thing. Is that like the? Do we think that is like the maximum score possible, or do you just have to try super hard so you get, what was it, 1,300,029 or something?
Right. I think it is, because on the screen you can see that it's it's like the mid-level credits are him going up some kind of elevator, like, and you can see it get up to one that it says G ground floor. So I'm assuming that like he starts at the bottom and it's like an underground base, and that's the end of the game. So I assume that which begs the question, why is the dude telling him the score that he has to get?
Yeah,
if all it is you have to finish the game. But
that's a good point.
Sure.
Now, another thing is I'm sort of confused as to why are the secret plans hidden in the game in the first place? Like, what is the thing here? Because obviously, like you mentioned, the guy tells him the high score. I presume he's somebody who works at Textronics or whatever it's called. Why are they making plans for stealth bombers, or invisible bombers as they call them in this? My
assumption is that for whatever reason they're in this building. I think that it must have been part of some sort of smuggling operation or something like that, right? Because you can smuggle that game across cross-country lines pretty easily, because people look at it and just say it's a game. Yes, it has chips in it. They're not going to scan it or anything like that in any way. I mean, granted, the old guy said don't put it through the machine, but...
Yeah, would that scramble the plans or whatever?
I don't remember the old days. I mean, it used to be you can't put a magnet next to a disc, a floppy disk, and it would go nuts. So I don't remember the rules. I didn't travel enough when I was 9 to know the rules for that kind of thing. So, I mean, I guess there is some there, or it's just old guy being worried kind of thing. But.
Yeah, that's another point. This movie is the one time in the history of its existence where the TSA would have been useful.
That's right. And, they had multiple people just running through security, but...
Oh, yeah, they were so lax. I'm like... We have I guess only one little kid asks just for the gate for the flight. And the lady's like, oh, yeah, it's gate 15, right. Concourse B, whatever, go ahead.
I think that, obviously it's fast and loose with that stuff, because the kid's always smart and is going to win the adventure or whatever, take care of things in the movie, because the adults have no idea what's going on. But
yeah.
It is fun, and I don't know. I don't remember, those programmable chips that they put in those games. I don't know, because the whole point is, for some reason, William Forsythe decides to, or Morris, his name is, opens up the game to look in the back. and sees an extra chip in there.
Yeah, he's opened up enough to know that everything's misplaced.
Right. Now, I could see maybe you got a ton of data, so you got an extra memory chip in there to hold that extra stuff, something like that. It's like having an extra bit of RAM on your computer or something.
Yeah.
But because those cartridges, obviously, they only had the bare minimum of what they needed for that game. You wouldn't manufacture more or anything like that. So that's kind of a fun little aspect to it. Yeah, I don't know. To your point, hiding it in a game, you definitely have to reprogram the game,
Yeah, to be able to give you the plans.
Maybe that was the point. Maybe the smugglers had a connection at the what was the name of the company? Intertech or whatever, whatever the
Textronics,
something like that. I've heard so many fake tech company names.
They blend together.
Yeah, that I'm not sure, but whatever it is maybe they had a connection there with a programmer who knew how to do this thing, and maybe that's the guy who was shot, and he actually saw what it was, and then got nervous, and then they shot. I don't know. We're not supposed to ask that.
Yeah, it's all kinds of messed up. I did look it up. This movie came out 5 years before the invention of the B-2 stealth bomber, so this could have happened.
Oh, definitely. You never know. Well, I mean, it definitely looks like an SR-71, which back in the day I was all fascinated by the SR-71 because it's kind of a big thing back in the time, and it was a secret program and that sort of stuff. And it does mention in the trivia that there's some sort of infrared thing on there or something that they at the time wasn't implemented, but now it's a common thing. So there was a little bit of prescience there or that kind of thing. So they did their research at least on that for fun, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they had a defense consultant or something.
I wonder, yeah.
Oh, man. I want to mention, I brought her up briefly a second ago. I wanted to bring up the little girl whose name I'm forgetting now. Kim, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, Kim Gardner. She was very fun. Oh, I liked her. She was a good foil to Henry Thomas.
She was a sassy little girl, yes.
Yeah. This is what I meant by embarrassing.
and that's always the little sister. Of course, she's not. I assume that if we were to continue on this story, they had two single parents or whatever. He's not your style, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was a good line. She's like, how do you know what my type is?
Yeah.
He's in the army or something. That was very fun. Now, that is one thing that I did sort of have questions about, though. It was sort of built up like these two had been friends for a while. You would imagine that their parents would at least know each other, especially when we get to the end. I mean, granted, he introduces himself, but they seem very, chummy, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a... and I can't remember. At that time, my mom was around that time, my mom was your grandma ran a little home daycare, so she was at home all the time and stuff. So I didn't necessarily have that whole latchkey kid thing going on. I mean, by the time I was in 5th grade or so, we had moved in town here, and I was in school and stuff, and she was working, and maybe then a little bit, but that was definitely a thing in the 80s. I mean, we see it in a lot of these movies, and some of these other ones that I'm going to make you watch eventually too, where kids are just on their own and free, and we didn't worry about the white vans picking them up on the street or anything like that. I mean, they just kind of run free, and it was okay, be home when the street lights come on, that kind of thing. So
definitely a different era. When was the scare that people were putting razor blades in Halloween candy? Was that around this time?
Well, that was
recent?
Definitely when I was a kid. I remember that being a thing when I was a kid too, and mom and dad had to examine every piece of candy you got for sure. But, this is also, I mean, it's. He's playing a little tabletop game, and like I said, we're around maybe a little late for Satanic Panic, that came around with all the Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and everybody thought anybody who played Dungeons and Dragons worshiped Satan, which just because you play doesn't mean you do, but just because, doesn't mean you don't either, but still.
But, well, to be fair, he's not playing Dungeons and Dragons, it's Cloak and Dagger, and this is in the 80s, so it would have been okay to be, glorifying this covert operation.
Well, and I'm also sure he was rolling 2 12-sided dice, which I don't know what that game system is.
I was trying to figure out what those were. They were D12s?
I think they were 12s. They didn't look like they had enough for 20s.
Yeah. I will say, it was a fun opening scene, though, where we get Jack Flack, what's his name again?
Dabney Coleman.
Dabney Coleman. What a weird first name. But I thought that was fun. We see him in the mission, it builds up the idea. I didn't read the description beforehand. I just looked at the poster. So I was like, oh, this is a spy thriller. He somehow gets involved in the actual spy conspiracy theory. And so seeing him, assassinate some people and accidentally
shoot a lady,
yeah, and stab it? What did he stab? Like a Shaw of Iran, just right in the chest.
All he did is swing his hand up, and I think I was trying to watch. It was really quick, but I think he knocks his knife around to stab. I don't know what happened.
It was weird, but I thought it was definitely a fun introduction. The dice in that scene did look horrible, however.
Yes. Even when they zoomed out and it was the small ones, I don't think they looked like real dice. I don't know. I was kind of looking at them. They didn't seem like them necessarily. Maybe they're well worn from lots of use.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense. He's been playing this game for presumably years now.
It's definitely a tonal shift when those two bright colored giant dice come rolling down the alleyway at him.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I will say it does seem like a fun game to play. I mean, we always talked about doing like making like homebrew D&D games based on like Avatar before the rule set came out for whatever system that's in.
Yep.
So it would be fun to do like a spy thriller type thing.
I think so. I think you got to, I mean, for it to be fun, you have to, there's a lot of the non-combat stuff there too, I think. But I think that you could do that if you implemented your handy little, a few little traps or something like that, or codes that you had to break, that kind of thing. I suppose you could probably run with that. So.
Yeah, no, definitely fun. I liked Dabney Coleman as Jack Flack, just sort of, jumping in at random points in the movie and conversing, quote unquote, conversing with Henry Thomas.
Right. It is, and I like Dabney Coleman. I mean, we talked about him, of course, with War Games. But right around this time, he was in a movie called 9 to 5, which is a fun woman empowerment comedy kind of thing where he's kind of a jerk boss, and that sort of thing. And then, we've seen him in a lot of things. And then he keeps popping up. But I don't know, is he still with us? I guess I didn't know.
I think. Oh no, just passed.
R.I.P. then.
May 16th. I thought so because he was just in an episode of Yellowstone. Oh, that was in 2019. That was a long time ago.
No, that was just.
Yeah, no, he's definitely fun. I will say it is kind of weird seeing him as both the father and the dad. Obviously, in the end, it comes to a happy ending, and it makes sense why Davey. I keep forgetting his name. Why Davey views them as the same person. But it was definitely weird in the beginning.
It was, and I think that they mentioned in one of the documentaries I watched, they kind of mentioned that the point of Dabney playing both parts is that he's supposed to be kind of a, mousy, lame dad when he's a dad, and he's supposed to be, this raucous spy. You know? But I didn't necessarily see a big separation between the two. I mean, obviously we didn't get a lot of time with the dad other than just being a grumpy old dad kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I see where they're playing up that he, he wants a father figure that's a little bit more involved, and maybe that's the kind of thing, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely like that. And it's the, so the point of this throughout this is that Jack Flack is like the physical manifestation of like his imagination and somehow his dad's too. But I like the idea that in the beginning, when Davey first brings the game home, or is it earlier than that? In any case, he's sitting there and he's talking to his dad, and he's like, "Dad, just play one game with me."
Yeah.
I like that, and I think they sort of make it make sense there, and I think it works well throughout this.
Well, it does. You're right. It's when he first comes home because he does kind of roll into it. So you got to wonder if a different movie would approach that as, this is him just trying to get his dad to do something with him.
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of thing. So. The loss of his mom, and he's kind of playing with that theme a little bit, I suppose. Who knows? But like I said, I like Dabney Coleman. I don't know if I've ever seen him. I didn't like him as an actor, and obviously sometimes his characters were douchebags, but it's kind of he's been around a lot, and in a lot of that era, I've seen him. So he pops up quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think, he was fun. Like you said, we only see the dad for a little bit. I do wish we had been able to see him a little bit more. It's, again, the same kind of thing with Never Ending Story. The dad is sort of there to just be alienated from the kid,
Right.
you know, in the beginning. And then in the end, you know, they come together, and obviously the dad ends up saving the day and becoming this hero.
Well, and that's supposed to kind of mirror off the fact, though, that I forgot his name, Davy. Davy also, you know, he has to kill that guy, you know.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. He has to, and he's kind of a little upset at Jack Flack for making him do that kind of thing, you know, and stuff. So I think it's one of those things where it's supposed to be like he's growing up at that point, like he's done with this stuff. Obviously, you know, it's obviously gets real, you know, gets real fast. But he's supposed to just kind of get past that and pass that baton on to, now he's going to start maybe spending time with his dad or something like that. I don't know. So,
well, and I do like the idea that, you know, Jack Flack, the last time that we quote unquote see him is that scene where Davy ends up shooting, I think it's Rice, right? That's when he shoots the main bad guy. Main bad guy, I guess not really. The most present bad guy. And I like the idea that he shoots him, and like that's the thing that makes Jack Flack disappear, because killing a man takes your innocence. You know?
I guess
it makes
right.
you stop being a child. It makes it so that none of it's imagination anymore. It's all real. And
Right.
like you said, I really do like that.
Yep. I don't want to play anymore. Yeah.
yeah. And that was fun. I made a joke about it earlier, you know, Jack Flack being both the manifestation of his and his dad's imagination. I did like where Dabney Coleman's like, yeah, your dad stopped playing with me too.
Yeah, that's the thing. When they got a little existential with that, is this an imaginary friend who's been around quite a bit, you know, or he's cowboys and Indians with his dad? I don't know. Now we're getting a little strange. And then, of course, we get the part where they give him kind of a transparent look, like almost like the guy can see him, you know, and that sort of thing. And I think you alluded to this, but this is where I got a little confused. It's like, is the guy with the gun actually seeing him when he shoots over there? Is he just kind of, you know, is my understanding as a kid that he just kind of shot at the wall because Davy keeps looking over there and or something like that. I don't know. You know, that's the ending that somewhat confuses me still to this day. So.
That's definitely a little bit weird. It makes it even weirder because you know, Davy is like, how did he see you? And Jack Flack's like, I bet that guy didn't have enough imagination or something.
But yeah, for some reason he had enough to want to just shoot the wall over there. Now I don't know if that's Davy talking over there or something, like, because I was as a kid or when I was been thinking about this, it was my assumption that Davy was doing more things to kind of distract him, right, and point him in that direction. But in that instance, I don't know anymore, because I noticed that Davy didn't say a whole lot. So.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so Dad, you were mentioning to me beforehand that you had a little bit more that you wanted to talk about the game. What were you? Well,
it is interesting. So they're playing on an Atari 2800, 2600. I don't know. I think 5200. I can't remember. So we had an Atari 2600. That was the big one, I think, that really kicked things off.
I'm not going to lie. I didn't know there were that many Atari consoles.
There weren't. That's the thing.
To me, it's just Atari.
So it's kind of fun because the game that they're playing was originally, it was going to be an arcade game. It was going to be something different, Secret Ace or something like that. And they mentioned, and they wrote this story, and they wanted to pull that game in there. So Atari changed it to be a Cloak and Dagger game and that sort of thing. But it was never released on Atari as a cartridge. So the cartridges that you see, of course, are just a sticker put on some other game.
Yeah.
All the shots of them playing the game, they actually had the arcade console behind the TV and just kind of piped the feed in there.
Okay.
And there is a shot like when he's walking over the walkie-talkies. You actually see an the arcade cabinet there.
Oh, really? That's fun.
But they were just about to get that out there and put that out there, but then Atari had a big bust.
Oh,
those video game there's a video game bust right around that time. In fact, the other one, the big famous one that I think there's a documentary out somewhere or something. I saw something about this on one of the streaming channels. And there's a poster there's a Chinese poster in the background on the film for the E.T. game in Atari. That's the game that famously they made so many of them, and the game was horrible.
Oh,
It stunk so bad that they ended up just taking all the cartridges and burying them out in the desert.
okay.
Yeah, so
I bet those are worth a lot.
There
now.
was actually a big special when they actually found the place and dug them up or something, you know. And I can't remember. I don't know if they sold for anything or what they did with it. But that game, you know, there was reviews out, and it was the worst Atari game ever. You know, which incidentally, of course, Henry Thomas, E.T. star, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. You know, obviously, I suppose they put the poster up just to kind of reference him because this was a couple years after E.T. But then that game is the one that kind of killed Atari or didn't help Atari.
Wow.
Continue on, but
That sucks. Now, did this movie... that's such a missed opportunity. Did this movie do good? Because if it did, then I feel like being able to sell that game would have helped.
I forgot. I mean, by the fact that we can't find it streaming anywhere now,
That's a good
I
point.
wouldn't even know if it's a cult classic necessarily. It's definitely one that I remember as a kid, and a couple of the YouTubers and stuff that I usually check out for videos, you know, and that sort of thing on these movies. They knew it, you know, but they're all my age, of course.
Sure.
So sure. I can't remember necessarily. I didn't even look up the numbers to see if it actually did anything. I do know it was released originally as a double feature with another movie we've talked about, The Last Starfighter.
Oh, nice.
And then it got a re-release on its own.
Another arcade game movie.
That's right. So, which you can see that little that connection there and stuff. But
That's fun. Wow. That is so crazy that you could like have... I didn't even think about this, but it's crazy to me that you can have entire movies like centered around arcade games.
Oh,
and then
yes.
like me, I don't think I've ever played an arcade game in my life.
and see, that's a problem. I think we need to get you some of them arcade 1-up cabinets or something and get you going on that. Or
That would
we
be
need to
fun.
build a retro Pi or something to get that going.
Now, I will say that the game that they are playing did actually look like it would be fairly fun.
It did look like a fun little top-down shooter kind of thing or something that he's and what he at one point he said he had to grab the suitcase and then light the bomb and then run out of the level or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's like a time limit. Yeah, he explodes and he's like, I get another life. We're good.
Right.
I do think that would be fun.
Those games, I mean, I was just the other day, because of course I have a couple Raspberry Pis sitting around. Just the other day, kind of reminding myself of the old, because I was cleaning out some of the junk we had from the condo. And I had, at one point, I had bought a little Raspberry Pi case that looked like an old NES system. So it had the two button controllers,
yeah.
the little game pads and stuff. And I just thought to myself, I kind of remember some of those. There's a game that I loved as a kid called Kung Fu on the NES that you could. All it was horizontal levels. You'd run and kick and punch, and then you'd get over there, and then you'd go up, and you'd run and kick and punch, and then you get. I don't know. It
It's
was
like
kind of
Donkey
fun.
Kong, but with the Kung Fu master.
It was kind of fun. I played that one a ton. Your great uncle Jerry, he loves to always bring up when we did have the old Atari, they had a football game on it, and it's great thinking about it, but he always likes to, and then it would go. With the little guys running up the thing, and you throw the ball and stuff, and it was great fun. I mean, I think right now you even have trouble emulating some of that because the machines have such processing that they go too quick. It's the old thing. We used to try to pull up the old Warcraft, the original, and stuff like that, and unless it's tuned for the processors, because at the time it was written for the speed of the processor, right? They didn't really build around the fact that the processors you can process a ton quicker, and stuff. But
Which I will say, speaking of Warcraft, they re-released they remastered the first two. The second one is so much fun.
Oh yeah,
It's so good.
well, that was the best one because then you got the ships, and so
yeah.
I played a lot more of that one than the first one. I guarantee. But
That one is definitely they've had some problems with that later on though, because there's two different endings, but depending on whether you play the human campaign or the orc campaign.
Well, the best part about that one is I still remember all your bases belong to us. The code for that way you could You wouldn't die, and you had unlimited everything. It was great.
Yeah,
that was the way
that's
I
good.
played.
I remember I played Warcraft 3 like about 50 million times. I remember playing all the way through the game and then getting to the end mission and then entering the cheat code to win just so I could see that last cinematic because I loved it so much. But anyways, Cloak and Dagger.
Speaking of Cloak and Dagger.
This movie, I definitely enjoyed it. We did have one cast member who we have seen. Well, we haven't seen anything that we've talked about, but we do know from some of the other classics that we know. Michael Murphy, the man who plays Rice, I believe.
Right.
He is the mayor in Batman Returns.
I wondered if we were going to get any connections because I was trying to look and I didn't recognize him at all. He does have a face where I feel like I would have seen him in other things.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And he's also, this is another place you might have seen him. He's Warren Worthington II in X-Men: The Last Stand.
That's where I know him.
Is that Angel's dad?
Yes, that is the guy who brings him in to get rid of the wings or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. What a bad movie. I rewatched.
I don't think it was Warren Worthington's fault, but
no, I blame Michael Murphy. It's all on him. I rewatched those not that long ago. That second one is so good. It's unbelievable. I mean, the first one's
X2,
great.
X-Men United.
Yeah, X-Men United. That's the subtitle. Don't get me wrong. The first one's good, but that second one, I don't know. There's something about it.
The X2, and I think that, so at the time, of course, we're talking X-Men, what is that, 2000, 2001?
Yeah.
I think was the first Bryan Singer X-Men.
That's a Z, not an X.
Of course, obviously it's at the time, they even make the joke in the movie, the black leather and is what you prefer leather spandex, and that sort of thing. But they were definitely trying to do something. And I think that would have been, let's see. So Spider-Man was before that, right? Sam Raimi Spider-Man was.
Because the second one was I was wrong.
Sam Raimi Spider-Man came out before the Two Towers.
Spider-Man 1 was 2002. That's right, because they
had the teaser with the Two Towers.
That's right.
So, and X-Men was what?
2000.
Okay, X-Men was before Spider-Man. That's right.
And X2 was 2003. Okay.
Okay, yeah. So we're kind of flipping over there and stuff, but I think that, I haven't gone back to revisit those, but I wouldn't mind after watching, Deadpool, Wolverine, and being reminded of the Fox universe, and stuff. I kind of I even felt like going back and watching Fantastic Four. But.
Yeah, I did rewatch the two Fantastic Four ones, and
good.
They do not hold up that well, especially the second one, which sucks because we've got is it Lawrence Fishburne who does the voice?
Yes.
For the Silver Surfer.
It would have been great to have more, a little bit of better introduction of Silver Surfer.
Yeah. I'm excited for the new movie, though.
We'll see.
I hope it holds up to my expectations.
Speaking of Cloak and Dagger, a spy movie. So, okay, Chris Evans, Fantastic Four, becomes Captain America. Arguably one of the better Captain America Marvel movies is the spy-based one that is Winter Soldier, and then we're back to Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Cloak and Dagger is also a Marvel character
right.
who is very fun to play in Marvel Rivals. So normally, like as always, I always like to talk about a little bit about the cinematography in these movies. There was one shot that I really enjoyed, and it was, again, in the beginning after Davey comes home, and he's talking to his dad, and it's when, I can't remember the exact dialogue here, but the short and skinny of it is obviously that the dad is saying, hey, man, you got to stop playing these games, and Davey is sitting in front of a mirror, and so we see the father on the left-hand side looking at Davey, and then Davey's looking at the mirror, and we see Davey's reflection in the mirror. I don't know. There's just something about the composition of that frame that I really enjoyed.
Well, and I wonder if that's kind of a callback to right before then, is when he's in the building, and he's going up the stairs, and he sees his reflection in the neighboring building, obviously some big, fancy high-rise building, right? He sees his reflection over there, and then he can see the reflection of the people in the room above it, getting into the fight, and that's when he sees the guy shot, and stuff. But if you look, he's sitting there talking to Dabney Coleman, or, Black, and Flack's reflection, of course, is not on the other building. So I wonder if they're trying to, if there was supposed to be a little bit of a something there.
That's a good point. I hadn't recognized that. That's really cool. I take it back. There's no two scenes in the movie that I like.
It was interesting. As a kid, I was like, what is it? The windows that reflective or what's going on there, and stuff. But yeah, it's obviously just a large high rise next to it that has that reflection. And that was a kind of a fun way to introduce that and then have the guy coming through the door shot already,
Yeah.
Stuff.
I will say that scene in the staircase is pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty fun where he gets the high score or whatever and then he's chased away.
Well, and then the obvious dummy falling down. That was pretty good.
That was the best part of the movie.
The arms don't quite flop right. But.
Well, and I am surprised that these goons were able to move the body so quickly because throughout the rest of this, they're just bumbling around.
Well, obviously, he's probably in a different trunk because they left Morris in the same trunk the whole. I mean, he's probably still there. Who knows?
Yeah, and how did nobody see it when the trunk is open? So after Davey hides in the trunk and then he escapes away to the Alamo, or I guess he doesn't escape. He just runs to the Alamo, and there's a horse with a horse-drawn carriage driver. I don't know what the term would be. And he's just not paying attention at all.
I guess not. Well, he's minding his own business. He doesn't, it's somebody's private trunk. We don't look in there. So.
Yeah. I had completely forgotten about this until just now, but it's sort of almost a fundamental aspect to the story. When they kidnap Kim and they're in the sunken gardens, I like how they prefigured the fact that Davy's got his water gun filled with red ink. They prefigured that way in the beginning. I thought that was fun. It was classic Chekhov's gun.
It is, and then of course it comes back at the end when he thinks that he's holding a water gun too, right? So when there's the standoff at the end, he says, "What is that? A water gun? Red ink or whatever?" He tells him. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was a good interaction. Yeah. Davy's like, "This doesn't shoot red ink," and Rice is like, "Neither does mine."
Yeah. I think, and again, you could see that gun. It was pre-safety on the gun, right? So shortly after that, there was enough kids who accidentally got shot, with water guns, with real guns because the water guns look too real. It was shortly after that they made the mandate that all water guns have like a red nozzle on them or something like that. But obviously this one didn't. Now I think that was around that time. I don't know. Maybe they painted this one just so that in the movie it didn't look that way. But that wouldn't play right now unless you specifically tainted your gun to look that way. So.
Which, I mean, granted, if this is a kid who's, that deep into this, mystery or whatever, he would probably try to do that. But then at the same time, wouldn't he paint the baseball to look like a grenade?
Yeah. The baseball grenade thing was, like I said, it was really annoying me when he's throwing it against a drywall. Them softballs, they do damage. And here he is just, that's serious property damage there. He'd get in trouble for.
Yeah, he's a vandal. He deserves to be thrown in, and he's a murderer. He deserves to be thrown in prison. No, I guess he's not. I was going to say he murdered 3 people, but he obviously didn't plant the explosive.
No, that's right. The only one he was responsible for was this clear self-defense or whatever.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It is self-defense.
We'll give him that, but he still needs to go see that therapist his dad was talking about.
Yeah, Dr. Sullivan.
Who knows? Maybe it'll be fine now. He's not going to talk to Jack anymore. So.
Yeah, he's definitely not schizophrenic. One other thing is, again, I mentioned these goons are not exactly the most capable. I don't care. I'm not exactly the most physically fit person. I'm, not in the best shape. I could run down any 9-year-old. You know what I mean?
Sure feels like it.
I could run him down real easy.
Obviously, he's awful squirrely. And, as an adult, you learn that you can't just run everywhere because people look at you funny. So maybe they're trying to be a little bit safe.
Yeah, but that didn't stop him any other time. Ooh, I did forget. There was a second scene that I didn't like nearly as much, and that's why I forgot about it until now. But I did enjoy it. When Davy's being chased by the 2 guys, not Rice, but Alvarez and whatever the other guy's name is, Haverman.
Right.
And it's the first time we see them run down this, riverside restaurant or whatever.
Right.
We get this, long shot with the colorful umbrellas, and we see him walk right down the middle of the frame, and then he hides behind some the umbrellas, and then he appears at the bottom on like one of the other sides. I like the composition of that too.
I mean, it's kind of fun. I mean, obviously these guys. I mean, so the director, was it the director or the writer, went on shortly after this to do movies like Fright Night and Child Play and that sort of thing.
I think it was the writer.
They're definitely concentrating more on the thriller aspect of this and less on the fact that it's a kids movie.
Yeah.
You know? So it was kind of interesting in that you're getting that. And as a child, maybe I thought I was getting away with a movie that's a little bit more grown up in that way. And maybe that helps that. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. The writer, his name is Tom Holland. He did Fright Night and Fright Night 2.
Well, of course. And this director was it at the same time? I think he's doing Psycho 2.
Yes.
And later on, Henry Thomas actually plays young who's the bad guy in Psycho?
Oh, I want to say like Arthur or something. No.
He plays a young version of it in Psycho 4.
Norman Bates.
That was terrible to forget.
Arthur. It's because his name's Anthony Perkins.
Well, there you go. You're close. But yes, Henry Thomas is a young Norman Bates in Psycho 4. So.
Oh, okay. Do you remember that series Bates Motel?
I do remember it. I never watched it.
I watched like the first maybe 4 episodes. I thought it was fun. I don't know why I stopped. It came out when I was relatively young. Well,
because you stopped it and then you wait until the end of the season. But at the time, there's probably 27 episodes.
Yeah,
by
the time I get around to it. We do have one other tangential connection, which I didn't realize. The director for this, Richard Franklin, also directed 5 episodes of the Beastmaster series.
I did see that. We've got all the connections. It definitely looked like shortly after this, he was mostly TV.
Yeah, I can't imagine why. But yeah, so I mean, any final thoughts, Dad?
I don't think so. You compare this again, like I said, we just talked Never Ending Story. So we're talking about children's movies, quote unquote, of my youth. Right, it's a lot different than I don't know if there's I guess they're shooting at kids. I don't know, but he definitely. I mean, they were shooting right at his feet at one point.
Oh,
you know, the old action trope. But I thought it was pretty good. Always, obviously, it's one that I remember because I remember wanting to bring it up, and we couldn't find it anywhere. So it's too bad that this one isn't necessarily streaming. In more places. I thought at one point, I must be thinking of a different one. I thought this was actually a Disney release, but I could be wrong on that.
Interesting.
Some of the other movies that we're going to talk about, spoiler alert, there's a movie called Flight of the Navigator. That's
I've heard that.
It was probably, I think it was about the same time. So there's there's Explorers. These are more sci-fi based that we're going to be watching one of these days, but there's a lot of these where the young kids are doing everything.
Sure.
And I was about that same age. And I think this is the same thing. So this was 84. I would have been 9. Davey's supposed to be 10 or 11 in this. So, I mean, we're right on the cusp there where a lot of these were kids when I was a kid.
Yeah, definitely you were in the right age group for this.
Yes.
I definitely think it's fun. Again, I don't know where I would rank it in the movies that we've seen. If we're comparing it to arcade video game based movies,
right,
I would probably rank Last Starfighter above this just personally. But I do think it's fun. I think it does a pretty good job of making that, child thriller type thing.
Yes.
I think it was very well done. Why don't you guys comment down below? Let us know what you thought of this movie, if you remember it from your childhood, or if, like me, you figured out this 40 years later when you're 20-something. Let me know. But definitely worth the watch if you've got the time. Make sure that you like and subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary. And we will see you guys next time for another classic movie review.